My dear children, gather close and lower your voices, because what you are about to hear is not just a story, but a lesson that our ancestors carved into memory with their own tears. In the land of Igala, where honor was measured by a man's word and shame traveled faster than fire, there lived a farmer named Emeka. He was not rich like the chiefs, not powerful like the warriors, but he was known for one thing. When Emeka spoke, his words stood firm like ancient trees. Emeka had 3 daughters, beautiful girls who laughed like bells and worked like their father, steady and true. His farm was small but blessed. His neighbors respected him. His name carried no stain. But as our elders say, trouble does not send a message before it arrives. It simply knocks. And when you open the door, your life is never the same again. One bright morning, Emeka prepared to visit his friend Okon in the neighboring village of Abana. The journey was not far, just 2 hours by foot through the forest path. Emeka's eldest daughter, Adiz, packed roasted yams and palm wine for her father's journey. "Papa," she said, tying the food bundle carefully, "greet Uncle Okon well for us. Tell him we remember his kindness." Emeka smiled and touched her head gently. "I will, my daughter." His second daughter, Obioma, brought him his walking stick. "Papa, the path is slippery from last night's rain. Walk carefully." Emeka nodded, taking the stick with gratitude. His youngest, Ngozi, simply hugged him tightly without words. She was like that, speaking more with her heart than her mouth. As Emeka walked to the village gate, the morning sun painted everything gold. Birds sang in the trees. The air smelled fresh like new beginnings. Emeka hummed an old tune his father taught him. He did not know that before sunset, his life would be weighed on scales he never asked to stand upon. The forest path was peaceful, shaded by tall trees. When Emeka arrived at Abana village, children playing in the dust pointed him toward Okon's compound. "Uncle Emeka!" they shouted, recognizing him from previous visits. Emeka waved at them, his face warm with greeting. Okon's compound sat at the edge of the village, surrounded by a low fence and vegetable gardens that stretched like green carpets. But as Emeka approached the gate, he noticed something wrong. A goat, fat and careless, was inside the garden, eating Okon's precious crops. The animal trampled young cassava plants and chewed through pepper seedlings with greedy satisfaction. Emeka's farmer instinct stirred immediately. He knew how much work went into planting, how many hours Okon must have spent clearing that land. Without thinking deeply, Emeka bent down, picked up a stone, and threw it hard at the goat to chase it away. The stone flew straight and true. It hit the goat's head with a sharp crack. The animal staggered once, twice, then collapsed completely. Silence fell over the compound like a heavy blanket. Emeka's heart dropped into his stomach. He rushed forward and knelt beside the goat, touching its neck, feeling for breath. Nothing. The goat was dead, its eyes staring blankly at the sky. Emeka's hands began to tremble. "No, no, no," he whispered. At that moment, Okon came running from inside his house, having heard the noise. When he saw the dead goat and his friend kneeling beside it, Okon's face turned pale. "Emeka," he said slowly, voice tight with fear. "What have you done?" "I only wanted to chase it away," Emeka explained quickly, standing up. "I didn't mean to kill it. I was trying to protect your crops." Okon looked at the destroyed garden, then at the dead goat, then at his friend. His expression shifted from shock to deep worry. "This goat," Okon said quietly, "belongs to Udoka, and Udoka is not a man who forgives easily." Emeka felt cold sweat form on his forehead. "Then we must go and explain," he said firmly. Okon nodded slowly, though his face showed doubt. Together, they lifted the dead goat and carried it through the village to Udoka's compound. People watched from doorways, whispering to each other. Bad news travels on fast legs in small villages. Udoka's compound was larger than most, with a painted gate and a courtyard swept clean. When they entered, Udoka himself was sitting under a mango tree, sharpening his machete. He was a big man, thick with muscle and temper. His eyes were small and mean like a hungry bush rat. When Udoka saw his dead goat, his face twisted with rage. "Who killed my goat?" he roared, standing up so fast his stool fell backward. Okon stepped forward carefully. It was an accident. My friend here was only trying to... But Udoka was not listening. His eyes fixed on Emika with pure hatred. "Stranger," he shouted, "you come to my village and kill my property?" Before anyone could speak, Udoka rushed forward and struck Emika across the face. The slap landed hard, making Emika stumble backward. His cheek burned like fire. But Emika did not raise his hand. He stood straight, accepting the blow because he knew he had done wrong, even if by accident. "I am sorry," Emika said clearly. "It was not intentional. I will pay for the goat." But Udoka was a man whose anger was a flood that words could not stop. He struck Emika again, this time with his fist. Then again, and again. Okon tried to pull Udoka back. "Brother, please." He said he will pay. But Udoka shoved Okon aside like a child pushing a toy. The beating continued. Emika's lips split open. Blood ran from his nose. His eye began to swell. The pain was sharp, but worse than the pain was the shame. People gathered at the compound gate, watching. Some looked away. Some whispered. Emika's dignity was being stripped in public like bark torn from a tree. Emika endured the beating with clenched teeth, his arms covering his head. But something inside him, something deep and human, finally snapped. When Udoka raised his hand for another blow, Emika's own hand shot up instinctively and struck back. Just once. One single blow. But that blow carried all the strength of a man defending his last piece of dignity. Udoka's head snapped backward. His eyes went wide with shock. Then his legs folded beneath him like cloth, and he fell to the ground. Hard. His head hit the earth with a dull thud. Silence crashed over the compound like a fallen tree. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Emika stood frozen, his hand still raised, horror spreading across his face as he realized what had happened. Okon rushed to Udoka's side, touching his neck, his wrist, pressing his ear to his chest. When Okon looked up at Emika, his face was white as chalk. "He's dead," Okon whispered. The words hung in the air like smoke. Dead. The crowd that had been watching gasped collectively. Women covered their mouths. Men stepped back as if death itself might spread to them. Emika's legs felt weak, but he did not run. He did not try to escape. Instead, he looked down at his hands, the same hands that planted yams and held his daughters, now stained with a man's death. His voice came out broken. "I did not mean to. God knows I did not mean to. But intention does not matter to a corpse." Udoka lay still, his small mean eyes now closed forever. His wife came running from inside the house, screaming when she saw her husband on the ground. Her wails pierced the afternoon air like sharp knives. Within minutes, the village chief's guards arrived. They were young men with hard faces and harder hands. They grabbed Emika by both arms. "You are under arrest," one said. "You will answer to the king." They tied Emika's hands with rough rope and led him through the village like a common criminal. Every step felt heavy. Every eye that watched felt like a stone thrown at his back. Children who had greeted him earlier now hid behind their mother's wrappers, staring with wide, frightened eyes. Okon followed behind, his face twisted with guilt and fear. "I will speak for you," he promised Emika quietly. "I will tell them it was an accident." But Emika only nodded silently. He knew that in matters of death, witnesses often became silent, and friends often became strangers. The journey to the palace took an hour. The palace stood tall in the center of Abana, its walls painted with ancient symbols of justice and power. Guards stood at every corner, spears gleaming in the fading sunlight. Inside the palace courtyard, they made Emika kneel on the hard ground, his knees pressed into the dust. His back ached from the beating. But physical pain was nothing compared to the weight pressing on his heart. The king of Abana was called Eze Nwachukwu, a man known for wisdom but also for strictness. He did not tolerate disorder in his land. When criminals were brought before him, justice was swift and final. Eze Nwachukwu sat on his carved wooden throne, wearing traditional royal robes and a red cap that marked his authority. His face was lined with age, his eyes sharp like an eagle watching prey. The palace hall was filled with elders, chiefs, and curious villagers who had heard about the stranger who killed Udoka. The chief guard announced loudly, "Your Majesty, we bring before you a stranger from Agala village. He killed Udoka, son of this land, with a single blow." Murmurs spread to the crowd like wind through grass. Eze Nwachukwu leaned forward, studying Emeka carefully. "Stranger," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "What is your name, and what do you say to this accusation?" Emeka lifted his head slowly. Despite his swollen face and bound hands, he spoke with clarity. "My name is Emeka, son of Obinna from Agala village." He began, "Your Majesty, I came here in peace to visit my friend. I found a goat destroying his crops. I threw a stone to chase it away, but the stone killed the goat. The owner, Udoka, began beating me severely. I endured many blows, but when he would not stop, my hand offended me. I struck him only once. He fell and died." The hall was silent, every ear strained to hear. Emeka continued, voice steady despite his fear. "I did not come here to kill. I did not come here to cause trouble. But I will not lie about what happened. My hand struck the blow that ended his life. I take full responsibility." Eze Nwachukwu nodded slowly, impressed by Emeka's honesty. "At least you do not deny your action," the king said. He turned to the crowd. "Did anyone witness this event?" Okon stepped forward immediately, his voice shaking. "Your Majesty," Okon said, bowing deeply. "I am Okon. Emeka is my friend. I saw everything. He spoke the truth. He was only protecting my farm. The goat was destroying my crops. When Udoka beat him repeatedly, Emeka endured it all. He only struck back once when the beating became too much. It was self-defense, Your Majesty." The crowd murmured again. Some nodded in understanding. Others shook their heads, unmoved by explanations. Udoka's wife stood near the front, tears streaming down her face. "My husband is dead," she cried. "Dead. What will I do? Who will feed my children?" Her pain was real and raw. Emeka's heart broke hearing it. He looked at her and said quietly, "I am deeply sorry. If I could bring him back, I would. But apologies cannot resurrect the dead." Eze Nwachukwu raised his hand for silence. "I have heard the testimony," he announced. "The law is clear. A life for a life. However, I will consult with the elders before passing final judgment." The elders gathered in a circle, speaking in low voices. Emeka remained kneeling, his mind racing back to his 3 daughters. What would happen to them if he died here? Who would take care of them? His chest tightened with grief not for himself, but for the children he might never see again. After what felt like an eternity, the elders returned to their seats. Eze Nwachukwu spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of judgment. "Emeka, son of Obinna, we have considered your case. While we understand the circumstances, the fact remains that a man is dead by your hand. Our law demands justice. You will be executed in the village square in 2 weeks' time, so all may witness that justice has been served." Gasps filled the hall. Emeka's face remained calm, though inside his soul trembled. He had expected this. Justice was justice, even when it broke hearts. But then Emeka did something unexpected. He looked up at the king and spoke clearly. "Your Majesty, I accept your judgment, but I have one request." The hall went quiet again. Eze Nwachukwu raised his eyebrow. "A condemned man wants to make requests?" His tone was neither mocking nor kind, simply curious. Emeka's voice did not waver. "Your Majesty, I have 3 daughters back in my village. They are young. They depend on me. They do not know what has happened here. I request permission to return home for 2 weeks to see them one last time, to arrange for their care, and to say goodbye. After that, I give you my word as a man of honor, I will return here to face my execution." The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Return? After being sentenced to death? Who would do that? Who would come back to die? The very idea seemed absurd. Even Eze Nwachukwu looked surprised. He leaned back in his throne, studying Emeka's face carefully. "You want me to release you so you can return home, with the promise that you will come back to be beheaded?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Emeka replied firmly. "That is my request." The king's face hardened. "And why should I believe you'll return? What stops you from running away, hiding, disappearing into another land where we cannot find you. Emeka met the king's eyes directly. Because my word is all I have, your majesty. If I break it, I am no longer a man. I would rather die with honor than live with shame. The hall buzzed with conversation. Some people thought Emeka was foolish. Others thought he was noble. The elders whispered among themselves again. Eze Nwachukwu spoke slowly. Your words sound honorable, stranger. But honor is easy to claim and hard to prove. If I grant your request, someone must stand in your place. Someone must be held here as guarantee. If you do not return, that person will die in your stead. Emeka's heart sank. Who would do such a thing? He turned to look at Okon, his friend. Okon's eyes met Emeka's, and in that moment, Emeka saw something that cut deeper than any knife. Fear. Okon looked away quickly, his face flushed with shame. He could not do it. He would not stand as guarantee. Emeka did not blame him. What man would willingly put his life on the line for another's promise? The request was too heavy, the risk too great. Does anyone here stand as guarantee for the stranger? Eze Nwachukwu called out the crowd. Silence answered him. People shifted uncomfortably, looking at their feet at the walls. Anywhere but at Emeka. Emeka's shoulders slumped. His request would be denied. He would die here without seeing his daughters again, without holding them one last time. Then, from the back of the hall, a voice rang out clear and strong. I will stand for him. Every head turned. The crowd parted slowly, revealing a man stepping forward. He was tall, dressed simply, with a face that showed neither fear nor foolishness, only calm determination. Nobody in the hall knew this man. He was not from Abana. He was not even from Agala. He was a complete stranger, a traveler who had been passing through the village and had stopped to witness the trial. The king stared at him in disbelief. Who are you? The stranger bowed respectfully. My name is Chukwu, your majesty. I am a trader from a distant land. I have no connection to this man Emeka. I do not know him. I have never met him before today. Then why? The king demanded, his voice rising with confusion and suspicion. Would you stand as guarantee for him? Why would you risk your own life? Chukwu's face remained peaceful. Because your majesty, if nobody trusts, then trust dies from the earth. This man spoke with honor. His eyes hold truth. I choose to believe him. And if I am wrong, then I will pay the price. But I would rather die trusting than live doubting everything. The hall was completely silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Eze Nwachukwu stood up from his throne, something he rarely did during trials. He walked slowly down the steps until he stood directly in front of Chukwu. He searched the stranger's face for madness, for foolishness, for hidden motives. But he found only sincerity. You understand what you are saying? The king asked quietly. If this man does not return, you will be beheaded in his place. Your life will end because of his broken promise. I understand completely, your majesty, Chukwu replied without hesitation. Eze Nwachukwu turned to look at Emeka, who was staring at Chukwu with tears streaming down his swollen face. Emeka, the king said, this stranger is willing to die for your word. Do you accept this arrangement? Emeka's voice cracked. I accept, and I swear on everything I hold sacred, I will return. The king nodded slowly. Very well. Guards, release Emeka. Place Chukwu in chains instead. Emeka, you have exactly 2 weeks. Not a day more. The guards removed the ropes from Emeka's wrists and immediately bound Chukwu's hands instead. As they led Chukwu away to the prison, Emeka rushed forward and grabbed his arm. Why? Emeka asked desperately. Why would you do this for me? You don't know me. Chukwu smiled gently. Because someone must believe that good men still exist. Go to your daughters. Arrange their care. Then return, so my trust is not foolish. With that, the guards pulled Chukwu away. Emeka watched him disappear into the dark corridor that led to the prison cells. Okon approached Emeka carefully, guilt written across his face. Emeka, but Emeka raised his hand gently. You do not need to explain, my friend. I understand fear. It is human. Okon's eyes filled with tears. Will you really return? He asked quietly. Emeka looked toward the corridor where Chukwu had disappeared. I must, he said simply. A man died because of me. Another man trusted me. How can I live if I betray both? That night, Emeka began his journey home. His body ached from the beating. His heart ached from everything that had happened. But his legs moved steadily, carrying him to the dark forest path back to Igala. He arrived at dawn, just as the sun painted the sky orange and pink. His daughters were already awake, preparing to work on the farm. When they saw their father approaching with a battered face and torn clothes, they screamed and ran to him. "Papa, what happened?" Adiz cried, touching his swollen eye carefully. Obioma brought water and cloth to clean his wounds. Little Ngozi simply held on to his waist, refusing to let go. Emeka gathered them close and told them everything. He did not hide the truth or soften it. He told them about the goat, the death, the trial, and the stranger who stood in his place. When he finished, silence filled their small home like heavy smoke. Finally, Adiz spoke, her voice small and frightened. "Papa, you're going back, aren't you?" Emeka looked at his three daughters, memorizing their faces, their eyes, the way the morning light touched their skin. "Yes," he said quietly. "I must go back." "No!" Obioma shouted, tears already falling. "Papa, please, run away. We can leave this village. We can go somewhere far where nobody knows us. We can start again." But Emeka shook his head slowly. "If I run, my word becomes worthless. If I run, an innocent man dies because he trusted me. If I run, I teach you that promises can be broken when they become difficult. What kind of father would I be?" Ngozi, the youngest, looked up at her with eyes too wise for her age. "If you go back, Papa, we lose you forever." Her voice was barely a whisper. Emeka's throat tightened painfully. "Yes, my daughter, but you will remember that your father was a man of honor, and that memory will feed you more than food ever could." For the next 2 weeks, Emeka arranged everything. He spoke with his brother about caring for the girls. He divided his small land between his daughters. He wrote down everything they needed to know about planting, harvesting, managing the farm. He cooked meals with them, told them stories, held them as they cried. The village elders heard about his situation. Some advised him to run. "Emeka," they said, "nobody would blame you. You have children to raise." That stranger chose his fate. You did not force him. But Emeka remained firm. "If I break my word, there will be no faithful man left on this earth. I cannot let that happen." The 2 weeks passed like water through fingers, too fast, too cruel. On the final morning, Emeka woke before sunrise. He prayed quietly, asking God to protect his daughters. Then he kissed each of them as they slept and walked out his compound. Adiz woke up and saw him leaving. "Papa, wait!" She ran after him, her sisters following close behind. The 3 girls walked with their father to the village boundary, holding his hands, crying silently. At the boundary, Emeka knelt and embraced them one final time. "Be strong," he whispered. "Be kind. Remember who you are." Then he stood and walked away without looking back, because if he looked back, his courage might break completely. The journey to Abana felt both too long and too short. With each step, Emeka thought about running. His legs could carry him away. His mind could justify it. But his heart would not allow it. When he reached Abana village, people stared in shock. Word spread quickly. The stranger returned. He actually came back. By the time Emeka reached the palace, a crowd had gathered larger than before. Eze Nwachukwu sat on his throne, and when Emeka entered and knelt, the king's face showed something rare. Surprise mixed with deep respect. "You returned," the king said, his voice carrying throughout the silent hall. "Against all wisdom, against all instinct to survive, you returned." Emeka bowed his head. "I gave my word, your majesty." The guards brought Chukwu from the prison. He had been treated well, given food and water, but 2 weeks in darkness had made his face pale. When he saw Emeka, Chukwu smiled broadly. "You came back," he said simply. "Did you doubt?" Emeka asked. "No," Chukwu replied. "Not once." Eze Nwachukwu stood up and addressed the crowd. "People of Abana, today we witnessed something rare. a man who kept his word even when that word leads to death. He turned to Emeka. Before we proceed with the execution, I must ask you this. Why did you return? You had every opportunity to disappear. You have daughters who need you. Why choose death? Emeka's voice rang clear. Your Majesty, if I had not returned, it would mean there is no faithful man left on earth. I could not let that happen. My word is my life. Without it, I am already dead. The king then turned to Chukwu. And you, stranger, why did you stand for him? Chukwu spoke with the same calm certainty. If I had not stood for him, it would mean nobody can be trusted. I chose to trust because the world desperately needs people who believe in each other. Nwachukwu nodded slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He called forward Udoka's wife and his 2 grown sons. The law gives you the right to choose, the king said to them. This man killed your husband and father. Do you want him executed, or do you choose differently? Udoka's wife looked at Emeka. For a long moment, tears rolled down her face. Finally, she spoke, voice trembling. If we kill this man, wickedness will never end. Someone kills, we kill back. Their family kills us. It continues forever like a circle with no opening. Her sons nodded in agreement. The eldest spoke. This man returned when he could have run. That stranger trusted when he had no reason. Their honor shames our anger. We choose to forgive. The crowd gasped. Nwachukwu smiled, perhaps for the first time anyone could remember during a trial. Then, justice today wears a different face, he declared. Emeka, you are free. Chukwu, you are released. Go, both of you, and let the world know that faithfulness still breathes. As Emeka and Chukwu walked out of the palace together, the crowd parted for them with respect, and the story of the faithful stranger spread across many lands, reminding everyone that honor, trust, and forgiveness are the pillars that prevent our world from crumbling into darkness. The end.